you were talking about when it comes to coverage for tennis, and I'm very guilty of it too. You talked about like the big five, like the main people, Federer, Venus, and Serena. Unless those people are in the event, in the match, most of us won't pay attention to it. And you want some of these storylines to be talked about. And I can relate. I want these young baseball prospects to be talked about, but I realized the casual fan couldn't care less. How do we embrace more of the quote unknowns that shouldn't be unknown, just so the casual fans paying attention to tennis more?
Here's the way I look at it. I think a lot of that responsibility is honestly in our hands.
Yeah.
And in all the networks' hands. I'm in a fortunate position. I've done many roles in sports broadcasting, commentary, hosting, single hosting. But now I'm mainly on the interviews. That's what I mainly do. I run the desk and I talk to the players all year long. And that's my favorite thing to do in the world because I get to interact with them. 80% of my interviews have nothing to do with tennis.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, to be in the top 100 on the ATP or WTA tour, you have to be so exceptionally good. You have to have come out of such dire circumstances to make it to this level that you are just one of the best athletes in the world. And they're not necessarily looked at that way. Oh, this guy's ranked 20. Oh, I'm not even going to watch. That's ludicrous. But I think the way to jump that and get through with that is every single one of these people from different cultures around the world all have an amazing story. So let's get into it. Maybe there's someone who lives in Oklahoma, and maybe there's a player from the Czech Republic who both watch Madam Secretary.
Yeah.
Maybe if they start talking about which episode they like, all of a sudden there's a connection point between these two, and that makes that person in Oklahoma want to watch a player from the Czech Republic's third round match at Roland Garros. I love that kind of stuff. And once they do that and start getting to know them, they become fans. I think it's less about the tennis and more about the people. So the more we can delve into the people of it, I love it. I think that's the key for us because there are so many untapped gems out there on the tennis tour, and it is the most international sport. I mean, you have players from every single part of the world coming in to participate, and there are some real stars out there. So I think it's part of our duty to just kind of keep shining a light.
I agree. And it's cool you said a lot of the conversations aren't about tennis. Was that the case when you first got started into broadcasting? Because when we first get a camera in front of us, we want to be the next XYZ, but you want to be you. And you talked about authenticity. So how were you able to embrace that? Or was it kind of test and fail scenarios, or what happened there?
Let me tell you, there's one story, which is sort of an example of this whole thing. This was back in 2019. Just to give you a little history, Tennis Channel said, we have the wild idea, end of 2018, we're going to send you with a whole camera crew to the O2 finals in London, which is the top 8 players in the world, right? I've never done this before. So they sent me there and said, get everything you can. And I knew these guys, right? Roger, Novak, all these guys, because I played with a lot of them. So I got all the footage I could. They loved it. So they said, great, we're going to create a role called travel correspondent, you and a camera guy running around the world in 2019. So 2019, it was me and a camera guy going to all these tournaments, just getting interviews. And I remember in one of them, I think I was in Dubai or Sydney, Acapulco, something like this. And I was interviewing someone. And my producer at the time, Michael Haston at Tennis Channel, was like, what are you doing? If we wanted some stiff, we would have hired. And he mentioned,
yeah.
he mentioned someone. So he was like, if we wanted that, we would have done that. Look, be you. Just, I don't care. You know what? I tell you what, go be so you that I tell you, yo, that's too much you.
Yeah.
Why don't you pull back? I said, are you sure? He said, yes, show it to me. I said, fine. So the next interview, I went out there, Gael Monfils, the French player, so exciting, had just started doing his Wakanda Forever celebration, after he used to win his matches. So we were having this interview, then I started talking about Black Panther. I'm like, yo, come on, brother, show me that stuff. We started doing this, started getting into a whole Marvel thing, and the whole thing turned into like a whole Black Panther interview. And he's like, that's what I'm talking about. So then I just sort of started leaning in since then, and we've just had some magical moments with like a bunch of different players, all over the place, which has been great.
Was there a sense of relief there too? You were like, okay, cool. Now I can, because if anything, you can be better because you can hone in on just being you. Was there a sense of relief? Like, I can do this now?
Well, it just kind of gave me, I'm a workhorse in anything I do. I love to work. And if it's at a 10 out of 10, I'm like, how can I get to a 10.1?
Right.
So if anything, this gave me a clear path to work on. And now I know exactly what direction to move into. So, even when I study, and look, I MC events, I host events too. Before I did this, in between acting, and when I was sort of a little bit downtime between traveling and I couldn't be in an acting class, I would do stand up just to kind of work on that muscle.
Oh, okay. I love
So,
that.
so I've studied all the great stand-ups in the past, and I studied that more than I study broadcasters and stuff like that. So this gave me a clear path to kind of mesh a lot of these avenues into one. I love looking at these great MCs. I love looking at great stand-ups. I love looking at great storytellers and kind of helping craft and talk show hosts, and
Hmm.
kind of crafting that into this platform.